Good morning, everyone, and what can I say? The fourth day in a row that this has just been an absolutely gorgeous time to be outside. Look at that blue sky and the leaves. Leaves are flying all around me, and since this is Coffee Shop Thursday, take a sip. I may even have to take a leaf or two out of my coffee mug as I'm speaking because it's just crazy out here. But the winds of change are here. Tomorrow it's going to be raining, so don't expect me to be sitting outside for our first thoughts on a Friday. But anyhow, hey, what are we talking about today as we sit around drinking our coffee in the coffee shop? We're going to go to the alternate Old Testament reading, which is actually a reading that can be done on Easter Sunday as well. Yeah, Isaiah, the 65th chapter. Now, it's important to remember that Isaiah is basically divided into three different sections. There's verses 1 through 39, which were spoken to the people the 30 years prior to going into exile. So that's the prophet they call first Isaiah. Then you have another prophet, they call him Deutero Isaiah, or second Isaiah. Third Isaiah is what we'll talk about today. But Deutero Isaiah, he's speaking to the people while they are in exile and they're losing hope. And he's saying, hey, you just got to hang in there. And these are the words of Yahweh to the people through that prophet. But here we are, and that goes from 40 through 55. And then 56 through 66 is what many considered to be third Isaiah. Now, there's not 100% scholarly consensus on that, but most now will say, yeah, this was a third prophet who spoke well into the time after they had returned from exile. And why do they say that? Well, because there appears to be a little bit of contention between the people who had been left behind. Remember, the Babylonians didn't carry everybody off into exile. They left some people behind. And then the people who also were allowed to return under Cyrus the Persian. And this was the real leadership group who came back in, reestablished the government, which was kind of a puppet government under Cyrus. They rebuilt the temple, and also they worked on reestablishing the worship practices of the people. But there was some differences between how to do those types of things between those who were left behind and now the second and third generation people coming back from exile. All right, got that picture? So it's kind of a difficult time, and it's not really working out as well as everybody thought. But all of a sudden you have this prophecy that comes in chapter 65. It kind of interrupts the whole flow of third Isaiah. And what's that flow? The flow is still a lot of judgment on the people for not listening to God. Even though God has allowed them to return back to their homeland, they're not doing what they should be doing, and that's why things aren't going well in the rebuilding of Jerusalem. Not as well as it should have been. Some things were getting done, but not everything. And here it all starts in chapter 65, verses 17 through 25. This one little oracle, this one little sermon is kind of stuck in there that brings about this word of hope, and it's fantastic. And you'll see why it's often used on Easter Sunday as an alternate Old Testament reading. For I am about to create new heavens and a new earth. The former things shall not be remembered or come to mind, but be glad and rejoice forever in what I'm creating. For I'm about to create Jerusalem as a joy and its people as a delight. I will rejoice in Jerusalem and delight in my people. No more shall the sound of weeping be heard in it, or the cry of distress. No more shall there be in it an infant that lives but a few days, or an old person who does not live out a lifetime. For one who dies at 100 years will be considered a youth, and one who falls short of 100 will be considered accursed. Okay, so it's going on in that vein, talking about basically almost the reversal of Genesis uh, and the curse that came upon the people in Genesis after the fall. Yeah, after Adam and Eve took a bite out of that apple that they weren't supposed to eat. Yeah, and it also talks about that now all the work that you do isn't going to be in vain. Let's see. They shall not build and another move into their house that he just built. They shall not plant and another sit there to munch around the fruit off the trees and the vines that they planted. No, you won't be working in vain. Remember? See, look at that. Those leaves flying all over me here. That's what was talked about a lot in the curse that comes in the book of Genesis. No, that's going to be gone. This is a new time, a new era, a new day. It's very apocalyptic in nature. There's some imagery going on that begins in this whole section, not just here, but in this whole third part of Isaiah. But here, the eschatology really starts ramping up, talking about what is going to come in those end times. So, as we move through it, just realize this is a beautiful passage of hope, and that's why it's often used at Easter, and it can be used at any time, really. We're using it here. We're not going to be using this ourselves in our congregation at church, but it can be used as we move toward the end of the church year. The end of the church year that does often tend to focus more on the future hope and the future that God has for you and for me and his whole creation. And his whole creation is so, look at that, it's so vibrant now. I keep focusing on this old mulberry tree I have behind me because it's the only tree that I can see other than my willow trees across the way here that still have leaves on them, and these big gigantic leaves are just flying all around me right now, and you probably can see them falling out of the air. And I've already picked 2 of them out of my coffee this morning. So grab your coffee on this Coffee Shop Thursday. Rejoice in God's wonderful creation and let the sun shine on you. God's blessings be with you.